Sigma takes you through the lens for a look at the Williams F1 factory. One of the big challenges with these hybrid turbo cars is keeping everything cool, but at the same time shrink wrapping the bodywork so the aerodynamics are the best they can be. And that's a circle that you've got to square every year, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an awful lot of heat coming out of these things. We've got the air coming out of the turbocharger, out of the compressor to be more precise. We've got to cool that. We've got the normal oil and water, but we've also got to keep the battery cool. We've got the gearbox to keep cool. And basically, we're packaging all the coolers in here. There are many kilowatts of heat to get rid of. We want the air to get through there. We have to keep it cool, but that air can cause a real detriment to our aerodynamics. So we want to keep everything tight. And as you can see, we've got very sleek bodywork. We let the air out in a few areas, like these little louvers here, but most of it is coming out of the back. And we'll adjust the bodywork depending on the ambient temperatures. The cooler it is, the tighter we can keep it in and the better performance we'll get.
And you always know in somewhere like Malaysia, a team's in trouble when they start cutting holes in the bodywork because the aero performance goes out the window. But how hot is it inside that engine bay?
It's really hot. The air coming out of these radiators is around 90 degrees centigrade, so we've got that to deal with as well.
Good stuff, James. A lot goes into this, doesn't it? The second practice session in Formula One gets underway in around about an hour's time. Of course, the first session was a good one for the Mercedes drivers, but of course, a lot to happen between now and Sunday. A lot happening here at Albert Park. Let's go and check in on Sam Mack. Let's see what Sam's up to.
Hey guys, we're in the action zone at the moment. I'm with Mackenzie, and what is this?
So this is the Pirelli Pit Stop Challenge.
And how does it work?
So essentially you just see how quickly you can change a Formula One tyre.
And what's a good time?
The best time for today is 6.12 seconds.
Oh, okay, well let's have a go at that. I'm going to see if I can beat 6.12 seconds, and I picked a random person out of the crowd that I'm going to go up against. I'm going up against this person here. This is 4-year-old Talia. Okay, so let's get into this in 3, 2, 1, and we're underway. Okay, I need some help.
Push the trigger.
Push the trigger. Okay, yep. Yep, yep, release. Put it down. Yep. And take the wheel off. Yep. Touch it there. Yep. Okay, good. How are we going? Put it back on. Put it back on like that. Yep. Back on. Start the knuckle. How's Talia going? How? Oh my. Hang on a second. What is going on here? How dare you, Talia. Congratulations, she is our tyre-changing champion. Round of applause for Talia. That is slightly emasculating. Back to you.
Well, Sam, that's what you get for trying to take on a 4-year-old. That's fair enough as well. Let's go over to Nat Hunter now.
Well, if you thought Formula One was extreme, then let me introduce you to the original extreme sport. And don't go calling this wood chopping. This is steel timber sports. Okay. And who knew that Australia are actually the world champions at it? So this weekend, lumberjacks from all over the world are going to be competing here at the Grand Prix for a spot in the World Championships a little later this year in Poland. Now, what you're seeing right here is just one of 6 disciplines. This is called the standing block. The idea is to chop that log in half. The world record time of doing this is about 15 seconds, and that axe is razor sharp. It can actually shave, I'm told. And these boys, well, they own between 200 and 300 axes. Well done, boys. So guys, if you like action, then this is the place for you.
Thanks, Nat. Okay, let's take you to race 1 of the Porsche Carrera Cup. It's over to Jack Perkins and Richard Crail.
Thanks, Mel. Looking forward to this. It's round 2 of the Porsche Carrera Cup Australia Championship, much like the V8 supercars we saw not more than an hour ago. They started their year in Adelaide, and it was almost as feisty a clean sweep for the reigning champion, Stephen Richards, headed home. A very competitive field, Jack. It's a great championship, Carrera Cup. We've enjoyed it for many years here at Albert Park in the Formula One Rolex Australian Grand Prix. This year, more competitive than we've ever seen it, with former champions and a bunch of young up-and-coming drivers in this field as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Porsche Carrera Cup field this year is fantastic. We've got a lot of young upcoming drivers, as you say, and the qualifying session yesterday was awesome. We saw young Nick McBride take his first pole position, and he went under lap record pace, so it was good for him. And young Matty Campbell, I interviewed him at Adelaide a couple of weeks ago. He does not look old enough to have his driver's licence, and he qualified on the front row of the grid, so great result for him.
Behind them, Nick Foster and Cam McConville, who will make the quick switch from Formula One car to Porsche Carrera Cup car. He's a busy boy, Cam McConville.
He is, isn't he? Well, I think I just saw him in that wood chopping thing as well. But no, he's definitely a busy man. And going from Formula One back to a Porsche, I mean, a bit of a change of pace there.
He's almost as busy as your helmet, mate, on our Qantas Club Lounge set, getting used for the lucky dip.
Yeah, I don't think that many people know that's one of mine, but that good to see that bit of a lucky dip there, and be interesting to see who picks the winner out of that helmet, mate.
So as we mentioned, Nick McBride will go from pole position in the number 77 car, the Bob Jane T-Mart's Porsche 991 GT3 Cup car from Sonic Motor Racing. His teammate Nick Foster will start directly behind, but there was a little bit of angst as we confirmed the grid amongst this top half a dozen yesterday, because there were 5 penalties handed down in qualifying for infringements with setting your best lap essentially in a yellow flag situation. So there was a car stranded off the road and several people improved their places. Now, you're not allowed to do that. As a result, drivers were penalised, amongst them Craig Baird, and he and Stephen Richards had a little bit of a discussion on Twitter last night. There are a couple of others involved as well. So just a little bit of angst just turns the volume up a little bit in this pointy end of the Carrera Cup Australia grid.
Yeah, I mean, Beto actually qualified third, so he had the third fastest time of the session, but there was a yellow flag out, and you're not supposed to complete your fastest lap in that scenario because you're supposed to be taking caution through the zone where there's a car stranded. And I guess Stephen Richards rightfully asked the stewards if anyone did indeed set their time in that period, and just so happened Beto was one of them. And yeah, there was a bit of Twitter warfare going on, but look, Richo and Beto are both very professional drivers, and you know, they just need to get on with the job now. And the first race here will be interesting to watch because Beto and Richo are side by side, I believe,
and both immensely competitive as well, we should mention, and in that camp of being a V8 supercar endurance driver, so they do use this to keep themselves sharp for the season of endurance later this year. You can see Craig Baird in that gold coloured car just pulling up on the third row. Brand new sponsor this weekend, Arthur Apartments, part of the Hallmark Group, Mark Seeney's company, the most experienced Carrera Cup driver in Australia, and they're presenting sponsor for this round as well. We should mention the Tag Heuer Carrera Challenge, race within a race in Carrera Cup for the semi-professional drivers. Max Twigg, the 3-time class champion, back in the field this weekend in the number 18 car. The Permagard sponsored entry, and doing a really good job. Qualified on pole in that class yesterday.
Twiggy a few years ago beat Mark Scaife here.
He still talks about it too.
He does. That's on the bio there. But good to see Twiggy back. This is his first round of the year with the Porsche Carrera Challenge. As we're awaiting a start, we've got Nick McBride on pole right of screen. To his right on the left of screen, Matty Campbell. First time on the front row for him. This will be a nervous experience.
And Nick Foster looking to make up for a disappointing opening round where he found the wall at turn 8 in Adelaide and destroyed the car. Porsche Carrera Cup on the streets of Albert Park. We're underway for the first of 3 races this weekend. Smoky start, but it's McBride clearly. Foster away well from second, and he'll out-drag Matt Campbell on the run into 1. Baird got a good start and immediately moved to that outside lane, but that's why, because he's got 2 places. Beto, the 5-time champion, has got some ground on the opening lap already.
Yeah, Beto in that gold machine. He's famous in this category for great starts, but the 2 Bob Jane T-Mart's cars out in front. Nick Foster in second. Nick McBride, no better feeling than a good clean start. As we see Richo now around the outside of Beto, doesn't get the job done. Beto stays in 4th.
Very wide for Nick McBride. I thought he might have dropped it at turn 3 on cold Michelin tyres, but he gathered it up and held on. There's Michael Armand and his teammate Cam McConville just further in front. So Stephen Richards and Baird have made some ground. Baird especially. McConville's dropped back 2 spots in that OPS-sponsored 991 GT3 Cup car. A little bit further back, 24-car field. The biggest we've had at Albert Park since 2008. It's a great field, very competitive. And look at Richo ranging up on the outside, and Baird looking to go down and grab 3rd place away. But, well, 4th place, I should say, couldn't quite do it. And as a result, his run out of the chicane is compromised, and McConville will attack.
Yeah, so what happened there with Beto, just got crowded out of room, and, you know, in a true gentleman, avoided contact with Richo, but his momentum out of that turn was lost, and Cameron McConville was all over the back of him.
Had more contact on Twitter last night. Here's McBride leading, but just hanging on from his very fast teammate Nick Foster. First career pole for Nick McBride. He's got a Bachelor with honours in law, he does. There's a bit of a backup career if the whole racing car driver thing doesn't work, but he's a very, very speedy young man. Behind them, David Russell there in the Finance Easy Racing Porsche. And Shay Davies, who's back in Carrera Cup this weekend. He's doing a limited 5-round campaign this year, the Queenslander.
I've expected more from David Russell so far this season. He came out and did the last couple of rounds last year and, you know, had complete massive pace. He had awesome car speed. He rubbed up a few competitors the wrong way as well, but, you know, he was winning races, and he'd be disappointed to be a bit further down the pack there in that Finance Easy portion. It's not easy when you've got such competitive drivers out there all in the same equipment.
So McBride leads lap 1, a little bit further back. Roger Largo looking to put a move on Tony Bates and Fraser Ross, the Melbourneian.
Yeah, that started in the braking zone.
Oh, Largo's gone in. Simon Hodge and Bates and Mastranato. 5 cars around at turn 1. James Bergmuller has spun 2.
I wonder if there's something on the road there, because Fraser Ross there looked like he had weird brake locking going on, and then everyone's come off around them. So potentially something on the road there, but you know, otherwise an unusual sort of spin there. As we see these two Bob J teammates cars, Nick Foster has a little bit of momentum on his teammate Nicholas Bride.
We'll try and work out what happened down there at turn 1. Meanwhile, it is on for the race lead between the teammates, but there's no team orders at Sonic Motor Racing. I think they might have to hold this battle off though, because we'll go safety car for the dramas down there at turn 1. So that involved the whole group of cars from 10th through to about 15th place, the pointy end of the Carrera Challenge field, the back half of the professionals at the front.
That's really frustrating for Nicholas Foster. I mean, when you've got pace on the leader and you've got momentum, you're looking for a passing manoeuvre, and then the safety car comes out, all that momentum's gone, and now he has to stop, reset, and work out where he can pass his teammate. And again, not easy racing your teammate. And I tell you what, I've driven for Michael Ritter. If you make any contact with your teammate, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he's not backwards in coming forward, is Mick. So there's Simon Hodge, won the Formula 3 championship last year. Porsche Carrera Cup rookie this season. There's Roger Largo. Strong start to his Carrera Challenge season on the streets of Adelaide. Tony Bates won that opening round and won all 3 races there.
Not sure what's happened to Hodge there. I mean, his car looks in reasonable nick as we look at a replay here. So Fraser Ross with the orange rounded headlights there. See how he's locked the rears and spun the car around. What happened to these cars? Largo got squeezed onto the tyres.
So I think Largo might have made a little bit of contact with Hodge. This will show it. So watch for Fraser Ross, the black, silver and grey car. He had a look down the inside of Twig, and Hodge got quite big contact from the JBS Porsche of Roger Largo. And then everyone else just spearing out of the way and avoidance behind them.
Yeah, so maybe there wasn't fluid. It was just a unique scenario where there was about 3 or 4 heavy races going on, and it looked like Scotty Taylor might have made some contact there as well. And you know, there's a bit of debris on the racetrack, so once they clean this up, we'll get going racing again.
So that's a shame for a lot of these guys looking to make their mark in the opening race of the Porsche Carrera Cup Australia weekend. While we're under safety car, we'll take the opportunity to go to a commercial break, get the ads out of the way so we can see some green flag racing when we come back to Albert Park. To the site of a green flag flying at Albert Park for race 1 of Porsche Carrera Cup Australia. We're back to green flag racing. Matt Campbell in 3rd place, just running a little bit wide under the pressure of the defending series champion Stephen Richards. Just the 1 lap under safety car while we were away. It's busy behind. Here goes Richo down the outside at turn 3. Does he get the laser Porsche stopped, or can Campbell hold him off? Baird will watch from behind in 5th place, but Richo gets it done.
That's a great move from Steve Richards to go around the outside at 3. Gives you the inside into 4. He's got it done. Matty Campbell now needs to fend off Craig Baird, who's coming under fire from Cameron McConville and David Russell. We always say safety cars breed safety cars, and this little group of cars here, anything could happen, but they're all professionals, good drivers here. This is going to be a great race to the end.
I was going to say Baird might get gobbled up here, and he did. He lost a couple of spots because McConville was able to go through as well, and now he's under pressure from David Russell, with Davies looking in behind, but Baird just puts the thing in the middle of the road and holds on. You said as we went to break, you were looking forward to seeing how that battle between the teammates played out, and you said there were no team orders, but there's also the one team order at Sonic would be no contact at all.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to come in after having damaged a car and facing Mick Ritter, the team owner. He is not one to mix his words, I must say, but look, these two guys have done a great job so far. They've bolted from the field, and it's good to see Bob Jane teammates. Rodney Jane has supported young drivers throughout. James Moffat, David Reynolds too to speak of, and it's good to see you know, these two boys repaying the faith shown by Rodney.
Just following on from the incident that brought out the safety car, we've been told that car 23, that's Roger Largo, will get a drive-through penalty for his part in the contact in causing that drama down at turn 1. So McBride, he's held his teammate out for this critical first lap while they bring their Michelin tyres, control tyre in the category. 2 brand new sets every weekend of Porsche Carrera Cup. It's a more liberal in terms of races and tyres allocation they get this weekend than the V8 supercars. So the Carrera Cup guys certainly like the rubber they get to use. McBride holding off. Foster's looking dangerous though.
Yeah, and so unlike the V8 supercars, this is a championship round for Carrera Cup, and Nick Foster in second. He was having a great run at Adelaide. He qualified on pole and unfortunately had a mechanical failure in the first race. In the second race, he had a massive crash. Come from rear of field, got to fourth, but destroyed that Porsche. He's actually in another car this weekend, and to see him running second in another car really highlights these cars are all the same. You can jump in any one of these cars and your performance should be the same, and it's great to see that that's showing through. And it's actually Ash Samardi's car from last year, and good to see Nick, getting some confidence back, running second, and he's pressuring Nick McBride here.
Oh, and he's got fluid coming out the front, so the radiators in these cars mounted just behind the front bar, and he'll have to stop. You cannot run these things too hot, and there's definitely fluid seeping out from the front, and he pulls to the escape road. Oh, a season of discontent for Nick Foster continues.
That is an unbelievable run of bad luck for Nick. I mean, let's look at a replay here. Can't see what caused the damage to the radiator, but you can see the fluid pouring out of the front bar, and these engines don't like running as air-cooled, so that show's over for the day. And tell you what, that moves Stephen Richards up to second. He's done a great job starting fifth, the reigning series champion. As we see here, Richard Muscat on screen, he's doing a great job in his first year in Carrera Cup. Raced the Australian GT last year, and he's certainly a young future to watch.
David Russell has got past Craig Baird as well, so the number 10 car, the Finance Easy Porsche, has just moved past the Alfred Apartments sponsored entry. 5-time champ behind the Muscat. The 22, the young Victorian, reigning Australian GT champion, was part of the Erebus Young Driver Academy last year, raced the SLS Mercedes in Aussie GT and did a very good job stepping up into Porsche Carrera Cup. But as you can see, all throughout the field this year, it's unbelievable. 13 cars covered by exactly 1 second in qualifying, and that's the closest Carrera Cup quali session we've seen in a very long time. Here's Shay Davies, Gold Coast-based young driver, splitting his time between V8s and Carrera Cup this season, just looking to put a run on Richard Muscat on that run down into turn 1.
So, I mean, Nick McBride, while you don't like to see your teammate go out, it takes a little bit of pressure off, and be interesting to see if Richo can catch him and put a bit of pressure on. It's a tough one here. I mean, Nick's got a lot of speed on board, and it's hard to bridge the gap, but Shay Davies' contact with Richard Muscat. That's the kind of contact that can cause radiator damage. It doesn't take much because the radiators are right at the front of the car, so you need to be careful making contact in this category.
We'll follow that for Shay Davies very, very closely. Muscat 7th, Davies 8th, Michael Armand 9th, and then Devarshan Padiachi in the VIP Pet Foods Porsche rounding out the top 10. Max Twiggers 11th, and off the road goes, that's Richard Muscat, isn't it? Ran wide, the back of the circuit, so there's plenty of action in the middle of this Porsche Carrera Cup Australia race. A brief commercial break, we'll come back and race to the checkered flag the other side of this. Welcome back to Albert Park. 3 to go in the opening race in the Porsche Carrera Cup Australia weekend, round 2 of their 8-round national championship this year. And it just so happens that one of the busiest drivers at Albert Park this weekend is also the fastest at the moment. Cam McConville is in 3rd place and he's closing in on the back of Stephen Richards. In fact, he has closed. He is right there. And this is the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. As this Carrera Cup race continues, you saw some tyres just on the road there down at turn 1. Shane Smollen, Carrera Challenge racer in the Tag Heuer class, spun his car on the entry to that corner while we were away at the commercial break, and recovered, but is now running a long way down the field in 17th position, lucky not to take out Stephen Grove, who's 2nd in that class. Meanwhile, great fight on, and Richo is under some pressure, Jack.
He is. I mean, McConville's got serious speed on board that Porsche. He just did a 59.1, some 0.6 faster than Richo, but he's also brought Matty Campbell along with him. As we see Roger Largo in the pit lane, looks like he's got some damage to the front right of that, probably from that turn 1 incident earlier in the race.
I was going to say, that had tyre bundle written all over it, didn't it? So this is just another look. That little front contact there for McConville.
That's what we call Morse code. That's just a little reminder to Richo from Cam to say, hey, I'm here, I'm faster, and I'm going to try and get past you at some stage. But not enough contact to cause any damage to either car, but good, close racing nonetheless.
Telegraphed nicely to the defending champion, who only won the 1 round en route to his championship last year. It proves that consistency is king. Much like his V8 supercar career, he was the accumulator. He just ticked away the points at every round and was always there or thereabouts. And he's taken that approach into his Carrera Cup career, and it delivered him a championship at the end of a really competitive season in Carrera Cup last year.
Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of his dad. I mean, racing cars in Porsche in particular, but working on them himself and then becoming the first father and son to win the Porsche Carrera Cup Championship in Australia is pretty cool. And yeah, Jim's the same, you know, the accumulator, true professional, getting it done. And this is an intense little battle. Cameron McConville's first year driving in the Carrera Cup. He found his way, you know, at Clipsal. He progressively got a lot better at Adelaide, and this weekend, by the looks of it, has, you know, some serious speed on board. Currently fastest lap of the race and pressuring Richo for second.
Not unfamiliar to the category, though. He was the motorsport manager for Porsche Cars Australia for just over 12 months and actually was the category manager last year. So he understands how it all works, understands the behind-the-scenes side of the sport, and understands how these cars operate too. And of course, he's a very, very accomplished racing car driver with a lot of success throughout the years in the V8 supercar paddock. A little bit further back, Devarshan Padiachi and Michael Arman just having a battle. They've swapped positions recently. Max Twigg just in behind. He continues to lead that race within a race. The semi-pro drivers, Tag Heuer Carrera Challenge, 11th place for Max at the moment.
Matty Campbell looking fast there. He's right on the back of Cameron McConville, and great qualifying effort from him yesterday to start second, and just lost a couple of spots early in the race, but, you know, really looks to be, got great speed there, and he's got the lights on and looking to pressure Cam, who's just dropped off Richo there. Who's just, you know, just easy gap. And looks like they are catching Nick McBride just a little bit, but they will probably run out of time.
As we said, 2 sets of tyres to use over a weekend. Do you think McBride at this point with 1.5 seconds just ease off that last 5% and bring the thing to the finish and make sure he gets this victory?
That's what these categories are about. It's experience, and that's part of it, you know, knowing when to push. It generally doesn't matter if you win by a second or 10 seconds as long as you're winning. So in terms of time management, that's obviously the best approach. Make sure you're only using the tyres as little as possible.
It's Matt Campbell, Queenslander from Warwick in the Darling Downs region, beautiful part of the world, heavily involved at Morgan Park Raceway. Applying the pressure for fourth.
Adrian Mastronato, who's missing a rear wing. That car wouldn't be that nice to drive without a rear wing. And Adrian spent some time in England, actually, with the world-renowned driver coach. And Tim Slade, who'll be driving with him later in the year. They both went over there with Rob Wilson. And, you know, we don't see that often. It's something that a lot of sports have their own coaches. But Rob Wilson's a world-renowned driver coach to many of the Formula One drivers here this weekend. And good to see some of our own drivers going over there and picking up a bit of tuition.
And the V8 supercar drivers love to come and play in Porsche Carrera Cup. They do a two-driver Pro-Am round later in the year at Phillip Island, and Scott McLaughlin hooks up with Stephen Grove. Actually won it last year and thoroughly enjoys driving, and I know David Reynolds was involved, and Tim Slade, as you mentioned. You put your hat into the rink, I suppose, to get a Guernsey at some point. We'll work on that for you, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great format for one round to be able to combine the pros and the elites and have a two-driver race that counts for the championship. And it really is a unique format. I mean, it brings in the V8 supercar drivers, but it also creates a level playing field because of that elite and pro ranking. It's quite a cool weekend.
The Porsche Carrera Cup cars allowed with their 3.8-litre flat six engines, but the Royal Australian Air Force allowed it. The FAA 18 flying overhead at the moment. Temporary diversion for all the fans here at Albert Park today. A beautiful day, Grand Prix Friday, as we continue our countdown to the second free practice session. Maybe we'll get a better indication of who's where in the Formula One paddock. Meanwhile, Nick McBride, it's been a perfect weekend so far. His first Carrera Cup pole. It's his 10th round in the championship, and his best race finish before this weekend was third. That was as much as he's been able to do. This will be a massive moment for Nick and his family, because out of the final corner he comes for Bob Jane Team Arts, the Sonic Motor Racing team, and Nick McBride will get the flag and win the opening race in round 2 of Porsche Carrera Cup Australia. Great start for McBride. Richo, the defending champion, home in second place, and McConville, a PB for his brief Carrera Cup career, home in third place.
Great drive from Nick. I mean, to lead from start to finish. First pole position, you're in front of a big crowd here. And, you know, you've got to face a few nerves and you've got to make sure you drive the car accordingly. And he did a great job. Can't pick a fault there at all. And great start to the weekend. And no doubt, you know, they'll fix Nick Foster's car, his teammate, and they'll get back out there. Bad luck for him, but a great result nonetheless for Nick.
Well, we mentioned it was feisty in qualifying. It was feisty in the opening race as well. Plenty going on through the field, some movers and shakers marching their way forward. And talk about shaking. This thing's shaking Albert Park at the moment. We love it when the Royal Australian Air Force come to town. The FA-18 flying over a picture-perfect autumn afternoon here in Melbourne. Everyone ducks when it comes over at warp speed on its first flyby. Louder than even the Porsches. So a great win for McBride. 2 more Porsche Carrera Cup Australia races over the weekend, of course, with 3 more V8 Supercar races. And tomorrow we'll bring you more of the speed comparison and the heritage touring cars as we confirm results, with McBride beating Richard Home in race 1 of Carrera Cup. Some good drives through. Shea Davies a solid 7th place on his return to the category. Richard Muscat in 8th and Paddy Acci and Armand rounding out the top 10. With Max Twigg in 11th and winning the Tag Heuer Carrera Challenge category, the race within a race in Carrera Cup. The defending class champion Stephen Grove in 13th place. Fraser Ross, after a spin, worked his way back to 14th in front of Tony Bates. Mark Seaney, Smollen, Bergmuller, Taylor and Samadi, some of the walking wounded, caught up in that opening lap drama down at turn 1. But that's Porsche Carrera Cup done as we go back to the studio. And Mel McLaughlin, I know you like all things with a little bit of horsepower. What would you choose, the FA-18 or a Porsche Carrera Cup car?
It's a tough one, but I think I'd go the Jet, actually. Richard, thanks, fellas. Hear from you again a little bit later on. It really is deafening when that FA-18 Jet flies over like just then. Everyone jumps a mile, but we really do love it. It's part of one of the aerial displays that we see every year, courtesy of the Royal Australian Air Force. I say everyone jumps a mile. It does give you a fright, but it is absolutely awesome to see in action. It is a beautiful, bright, sunny day as well. Perfect conditions. Let's go. Also perfect conditions to speak to these guys. Rick Kelly, Tom Clarkson, and back to you, Howie, in the paddock.
It'd be perfect, Mel, if that plane disappeared, because that has scared the bejesus out of us. Let's be honest, Tom, when it went over, Tom was hiding under the flowers over there. Tom, let's get serious. We've got Rick here as well. It was frightening, but I think it's gone, and hopefully it doesn't come back for a while. Let's start with free practice 1, Tom. How much can we take out of it? Mercedes, a second quicker than anyone else in the field, and the fastest time by Rosberg was set early in the session when the track, as we're about to get bombed again, Tom, was at its...
I think the only thing we can say after that session is that Mercedes are looking as strong as they were during winter testing, but really the track conditions were changing by the lap. It's something I mentioned in commentary, is that this racetrack is only used one weekend a year, so it's very, very slippery to start with. It needs to rubber in. The drivers were commenting on it over the radio, so I think we saw a lap time improvement of maybe 1.5 seconds during that session, and the teams are expecting it to improve again by that much. So until the track becomes representative, the lap times don't actually mean anything.
Rick, from a driver's perspective, we saw some impressive performances by the young men from Toro Rosso, Sainz and Verstappen, very young men, first time they've seen the circuit. How difficult is it when you have that first crack at a racetrack for the very first time?
Well, you're dead right. They're very impressive young men. This circuit's quite challenging. I mean, 15, 16 corners out there. The thing is, you have to get every single sector of each corner right. You know, the braking, entry, mid, and exit. The problem is with this track, every corner leads into another corner, and possibly another corner again, like 4, 5, and 6. So if you get one wrong, you're going to get 2 or 3 wrong. So to get a whole lap around here perfect can be very difficult.
It's also very slippery, isn't it? And bumpy. That's another thing the teams are talking about. How does the bump upset the confidence of a young driver?
Well, it certainly does, especially in a heavy braking zone like into turn. That thing's got no problem with braking at all. Into turn 1, it's bumpy there, and it's a very fast corner, a fast straight leading into a slow corner, so it can knock your confidence around. And we saw from the vision from practice there in Formula 1, it's very bumpy. In our car, you can't really feel it, but on the TV, you can really see him jump around, and that can unnerve you, but particularly around faster corners that we've got over the back here at Albert Park.
Grev, let's move down towards Red Bull as we're in the paddock. All sorts of colourful characters here as always, Tom. How did you view the performance of Ricciardo on the Red Bull, the only driver driver to spin, but a couple of seconds back. Are you concerned by that at this early stage?
Certainly not concerned about the pace, because as I said, I don't think those lap times mean too much, but it was very unusual to see Daniel make a mistake like that. One of the things that stood him apart, I thought, last season was that he never made a mistake. He was relentless in the races, and so unusual to see him. He under braking there, wasn't he? He ran a little bit wide, got onto the AstroTurf, and as a result, it swapped ends on him. But I'm not concerned about the pace, no.
And from a driver's point of view, you make that early mistake, Rick, but there's no damage done. Is it a confidence issue that you need to think, right, I've just got to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that? Does it take your confidence back a bit, or straight out of the mind and on you go?
Well, the workload for him heading into his local event is just horrendous. He's got so much. We've seen him on every radio show, every TV show that you've ever seen. So he's got to get his mind back onto the job. If you're going to make a mistake at this place, that's a corner to do it. It's nice and slow. It went around gently, and he'll be on top of his game from now on.
Spot on. Well, Mel, we're looking forward very much to free practice, and we've got to say, Tom, you're admiring Rick's makeup. He looks fantastic with the makeup on.
What makeup?
Yeah, he's absolutely caked on, he has, Mel, but he's doing a good job. So looking forward to free practice 2 coming up shortly.
Good stuff, all three of you. Amazing makeup and some great hair as well from Rick Kelly. We'll hear from those guys a little bit later on. Of course, not too far away from that second practice session with the Formula One. Still plenty to come. We're off to a break with a quick reminder that we do have some big news for Formula One fans. Better access than ever here on Network 10 through our 10 Play. There is now 5 new Formula One channels streaming live at all times. Here's a look at what you can expect.
Experience the Australian Grand Prix like never before. 10 Play is the free all-access digital pass for Formula One spectacular season opener. This is unparalleled coverage by an Australian free-to-air broadcaster. F1 Super Streams is giving race fans live simultaneous online channels of action free. Head to 10 Play to be transported off the sofa, onto the track and beyond. Sit in the driver's seat. Follow all the action. Feel the pressure of pit lane and relive highlights from the grid to the checkered flag. This is your inside line to the Australian Formula One Grand Prix.